I have a treat for you guys today, guys. I am doing a collab today. We are bringing on someone who has a vast amount of wisdom when it comes to the housing market. We're bringing on my good friend, Todd from Sachs Realty, guys. He's gonna answer some great questions on things like, should you buy a house right now? What's happening with rents? And the biggest of them all, when is the housing market gonna crash? You guys know that's a big one. You guys are asking that question consistently. And I love to hear other people's point of view. So without wasting any more time, let me bring on my good friend, Todd from Sachs Realty. Todd, welcome to the show.
Orlando, man, thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
Yeah, no problem, man. I really appreciate you coming in. I know you just did a video on landlords, and obviously your channel talks about the housing market and what's currently going on with it. So I wanted to bring you in on this conversation. And could you go ahead and just explain to my audience about what your channel is about?
Yeah, well, we are just like you, Orlando. We try and bring it straight. So many people, especially, look, we all know the housing market's crashing. And, I started talking about that in April. I've been serving the housing market since 1989. I've been here before. I've seen it. We look at the data. We follow it. And, back in April, we started to see where the shift was really taking place. And we put a video out that the buyer's market was coming soon. And, a lot of people were still kind of preaching, it's never going to go down. And, you need to buy now. If you don't buy now, you're going to be sorry, and that kind of thing. And Orlando, I'm a real estate broker here in Maryland. I run a very small team of professional agents, and they have a lot of experience in the market. And we just believe that true fiduciaries, taking care of our client, it's important that we talk about the actual truth and what's happening.
Okay, so I want to stay on that subject for a little bit, because what we have been seeing is at least is on the YouTube front, I've seen a lot of realtors that were saying that the crash is never going to happen, values aren't going to go down. And I want to ask you this question. What do you think about that? Why do you think that a lot of realtors were saying this, where they were really pointing people in the direction of, a buying? Do you think it was because they just want to continue to make a sale, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, real estate agents are commission based. We know that, right? Most of them. There are some companies out there that will pay a salary to an agent. So, they want to be hopeful that their career isn't crashing to an end. In the 2008, we saw a lot of agents exit the market. There's about 1.6 million licensees, I believe now, that has climbed up significantly since the market was hot. And I think that, at some point, you don't want to believe what's happening. You don't, and giving them the benefit of the doubt, maybe it isn't just about the sale. Maybe they just don't spend a lot of time in the data and the analytics. And I think that, if you're in business, and agents, most of them, like I said, are self-employed, they're not getting a salary. I think that, they focus just on the sale aspect and not really what's happening behind the scenes. And if you look at what's happening, not from just a US marketplace, from like a global market, and the pandemic really made us individuals become more of aware of the global environment. Real estate agents should not just be paying attention to what's happening in their own specific market, but we should actually know what's going on nationally. And I think all the signs were pointing to this correction, this crash. And, when we see that the Federal Reserve is talking about raising the rates, they had never dropped, the Federal Reserve fund rate to almost zero. I don't think that's ever happened before. When mortgage rates were under 3%, 2.74% at a low, you have to be able to put two and two together and say that that is one of the reasons why the inventory prices, the housing prices escalated so much, because we were dealing with a short supply. We were dealing with cheap money as a solution. People could enter in long-term debt and they could afford to pay more. So just from the economic side of it, if you think about them now doubling those rates, people can't pay 40, 50% more for their mortgage payment and still pay the same amount for the house. So the downward pressure had to come, and it had to attack the price itself.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like I said, when it comes to the knowledge of knowing exactly what's going on with the housing market, even though I think it's definitely important to know exactly what's going on in your local market, there's so much more that really affects how the national housing market, or even your local market, is moving based on global things. We know China, we know the war that's currently going on. All of those things really do affect what's currently going on in the housing market. So it's just kind of funny to see that you see, real estate agents currently right now just, I mean, some of them are turning about and kind of saying, oh yeah, we are going to have a housing crash now. But it's I feel like it's only because of what's currently in most people's faces. We have interest rates at 7.4%, and they're continuing to go up. We have 2 more Fed increases that will happen this year. And how many more will we have next year? I don't know, but I can guarantee you probably have at least one more. The Fed has also said that they will continue to raise rates as much as possible to fight inflation, and that they don't really care about the housing market. The housing market will be collateral damage, and that you cannot expect this to be a painless act. So with all of these things happening, and the Fed actually telling you, that's what I keep trying to tell my audience, is that the Fed is literally telling you exactly what they're going to do. And if you don't follow these red flags and see exactly what's currently happening in the housing market, then I think you're just being blind to the situation, and you can put yourself in a bad situation, especially if you currently buy right now and you're not paying attention to all of these signs and to your local market. So I want to jump to another subject, and the next subject is what do you think individuals, since I was just talking about buying right now, do you think individuals should buy right now? And I want to add another component to that. When do you think they should buy if you don't believe that they should buy right now?
Well, I think and this is the question. I mean, Orlando, this is the question that we get the most. Should I be buying right now, or should I renew my lease? And I'm going to say that the only way that you should be buying right now is if you find a place, well, number one, that you have to move, right? Number two, if you're going to live there, that you're buying a place where you're going to live for the next at least 7 years, I would say, okay? Because despite whatever happens in correction or crash, over the course of time, it will continue to go up. It always has, even in some of the worst economic depressions. So as far as real estate values will continue to rise. So if you need to move now, if you're going to be there at least 7 years, you find something that checks all of the boxes. If you're buying an older home, that it has major updating already done, that you're not going to be buying something that is going to be a money pit. And that I always say you should have 5 or 6 months of emergency cash in the bank in case, and this is after you pay your closing costs, after you put any money down, you should have 5 or 6 months of cash ready to go should something unforeseen happen, like you lose your job or something like that, which is not far-fetched in a downturn,
Right.
And then the other thing I'm going to say is, if you don't have that, renew the lease, even though the lease may be going up. Renew the lease, move back home, get a roommate, whatever your situation, because people think that rent is a dirty word. A lot of people are like, why are you throwing your money away? I tell you what, you'll be throwing your money away if you overpay for a dump. That you have to spend $50,000 or $60,000 in that you don't even know yet for the next 2 years, and you've spent all of your cash buying it. That's throwing your money away. So I'm going to say, if you must buy and everything checks out, you can move forward. Make sure you have a very good agent. Interview that agent well. Make sure they're full-time. And I'm going to tell you right now, make sure they're not pushy. Make sure they're not going to, stress you out. And, if you're looking at something and the pressure gets on, where you hear the words, "We have another offer," just if you're not comfortable with it, walk away. Don't worry about it. Your time will come. A reckoning is happening, an adjustment, whatever you want to call it, a crash, it's going on, and it's not over.
When do you think is a good time to buy?
I
Do you
think,
have
like you
a
said,
range?
yeah, I think, like you said, our Fed has announced that they are raising interest rates probably another 2 times this year. That is their intention anyway. In September 21st, Jay Powell said that, what he had said was not a formal plan, but that they could adjust. But they certainly put it out there, right? They're expecting to raise rates 2 more times this year alone, and then basically continue that into 2023, and then start to bring things back in 2024. And then he had made some type of mention that in 2025, that the rates may be a little bit less than what they are now, but we're still not, in my opinion, we're not going to see anywhere near what we saw with 2.74 for 30-year mortgage, fixed mortgage, 2.74%.
Right.
So what I'm thinking is that, in the crash of 2008, it took about, 3 years before we saw the bottom. So it started in 2005. A lot of people don't realize that, unless you were, what I was doing was building houses, flipping houses, rehabbing, investing. 2005 is when we started to see it, where they were mentioning the overpriced housing market. By 2008, we had a bloodbath. So it took about 3 years thereabouts before we really started to hit the bottom. Everything's happening faster now. The internet allows people more information quicker. If you go back to 2005, I think 2005, look, where there's a YouTube video. 2005, YouTube was created. So that's how, things have changed in the last, 10, 15 years. The internet has allowed things to happen faster. So if we chop that time in half, I would say that we should probably see a bottom somewhere in that 12 to 18 months. But I wouldn't try and time the bottom so much as I would just try and time when there's more inventory on the market, when you have a better pool of houses that fit your need. It's going to be more beneficial for you at that time, to buy. So I would say if you could wait until, certainly another 3 or 4 months, you'll be better off. If you can wait till probably next summer, you'll probably still be better off. Again, we don't have any crystal ball, but that's my opinion. Yeah.
And to add on to that, because you basically just answered my next question, which was, when do you think a crash is going to happen? Because we all know that is probably one of the biggest questions that we get from our audience is, when is the crash going to happen? And you answered that really with your answer previously when you said, the next 12 to 18 months and you think that things are going to go down. But I do want to add on to that and say that I try to tell my audience also the same thing when it comes to when is the crash going to happen and when are you going to buy? And my answer to those questions are always, you have to really focus on what your goals are and what's happening in your local market. Because just because, we come on to YouTube and we say, hey, look, this is when something's going to start. That doesn't mean that you will see the same results in your local area that you will see in another area. Like let's say you live in Miami, you won't see the same results from LA or New York or Austin. Every market is its own, right? And so you can't focus on, wow, LA is seeing major price cuts or San Francisco is seeing price cuts, but my local area has not even moved, because we know that things when it comes to real estate happens at different times in different areas. So I tell people to really focus on your local area, focus on what your goals are. Maybe for you saw this house that was $100,000 over asking or overpriced, and now it's down by $80,000 or $50,000. And that's the number that you were looking for, right? If that's the number you were looking for, then that's a deal that you can go after. But if you're looking for houses to go from, $300,000 down to $20,000, then that's unrealistic and you'll never see that. I tell people to make sure that they know exactly what to expect and to keep, their expectation realistic.
Orlando, I'm so glad that you just mentioned that because, a lot of people think, hey, look, I'm not going to buy until I see a 40 or 50% or 60% price reduction in the houses that they're, where they are right now. In my 33 years, of dealing in this industry, serving the housing market, I don't think you're going to see that. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't see that in properties that are very distressed. So if we get into a situation where foreclosures become widespread, when somebody loses their house, they usually stop fixing things years before they're actually kicked out of the house. And for those reasons, maybe there's mold, maybe the heating and air system no longer works. Maybe there's roof leaks and you need extensive structural repairs. Yes, you may be able to pick those up for 50 cents on the value, the dollar of its value. But that's not going to be what I would be banking on. I've said it, 10 to 20% price reductions from, the true list price. Orlando, if you're going to buy right now, my recommendation is, don't look at the comparable sales in the last 6 months like an appraiser traditionally does, because in 6 months, we were still at the peak. I would say make sure you're looking at the comparable sales that have closed, guys. I'm talking about if you are looking at a house in a community and have that agent run a comparable report of closed transactions in the last 30 days, because we've already seen prices start to come down. If you can get 10, 15, 20% price reduction off of that, that is a true comparable. Once you find out what that value of the property you're looking at is, if you can get it for 10 to 20% less and it's in good shape, you may want to buy it now because you're still going to be in a good position if it checks all of the boxes.
With that being said, what do you believe, and this is just an offshoot question about inventory. So we're starting to see, a lot of sellers are saying, you know what? I'm not gonna take this price cutting and what they consider price, these taking advantage of the price and it kind of moving over to a buyer's market, right? And they don't want to drop their prices below, and they would prefer to rent out, or they would prefer to just hold onto the property and hope that the prices will get back up to where they were 6 months ago, or even a fraction of that, but they do not want to take the haircut. What do you think on the seller side is the best advice that you would give to them? Would you tell them to sell now? Would you tell them to, hold on to the property? What do you think sellers should do? Because I have a lot of sellers in my audience that just are confused on exactly what direction to go.
That is a great question. And we get it from the seller side too. So, what we're telling our sellers is if you need to sell and you would like to sell within the next 12 months, you best sell now because we think it's going to go down. We have a lot of people that are saying, hey, I'm going to take my house off the market and I'm just going to put it on in the spring. I think that as inventory increases in the spring market, like it always does, the competition is going to put even more downward price pressure on your home. So if you need to sell within the next year, get it on the market right now while the inventory is still exceedingly low. And so then the other thing is that you want to make sure that you fix everything. Now is probably a good time to have an inspector come into your house. I don't usually recommend it, but in this situation, have somebody check it out, tell you what's wrong. You probably already know what's broken. You've been living in the house. So, fix those things. They're going to want it. And what I'm going to tell you too is that you have to really make sure, Orlando, and this is critical. Price it right from the start. Forget this, theory that you're going to price it for 2 weeks. And if it does not sell in 2 weeks, then we'll do a price reduction. My experience is once the arrow starts going in that negative position, it continues to fall. you would be better off pricing it a little bit below where your agent thinks it will actually sell and still get some activity, get some competitiveness going. If it's a good buy on the house and it's a nice, well-maintained place, you probably will sell it. You'll be okay. But the critical thing is get off the high horse. The ship has sailed. The market has changed. The peak is done. Understand it, acknowledge it. I don't care what anybody's telling you. We hear all the time, well, it's not happening in our area. It will. ABCs. Number one, interest rates are up. Number two, or B, however you want to look at it, affordability has gone down for the buyers, right? Even people that thought they had a lot of money. I mean, they're looking at it. The stocks wary. The fuel is still high, but utilities, food, right? Think about the food bills. I went and bought bacon the other day. It was $10 for a pack of bacon, Orlando. I mean, I have to eat less, bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches because I have to go sparingly and put one piece on my sandwich. But sellers can still sell. They can still sell, and I recommend don't wait. Don't wait. If you want to sell in the next year, do not wait.
If we've seen all the news articles and things that are coming out in the media that sellers are saying, they're going to, like I said, take their houses off the market. They're looking at the past and saying, I want those prices. And I'm telling sellers like, no, you need to jump on this now. Inventory is low. This is the best that you probably will get because prices are dropping and they're dropping fast. And so we don't know what's going to happen, but what we can do is we do know that the Fed is going to continue to raise rates, which is going to dampen demand. So we already know that. So that's going to be happening. So sellers, in my opinion, and Todd's opinion, you should sell now. So let's jump to the next question. And this is a big one because I get this in my comic section all the time when it comes to renting is, like you said earlier, rent is like a dirty word when it comes to, buying a house. You're wasting so much money. People say, Orlando, why would I waste money on rent when I could go ahead and put it on a mortgage? And, this big question about should you rent? Should you buy all this other stuff about it? I want to hear your opinion on what's currently happening to the rental market because because obviously I own property too. So I've seen rent drop down. The demand for people trying to jump into rental properties are coming down. People are bunking up together. Families are moving in with each other. So we're starting to see all of that happening. Can you please explain, because I know you just did a video on landlords, what you are seeing when it comes to the rental market and how our viewers, can take advantage of this?
Well, I think, there's a whole lot to unpack with that. But the short of it, I guess, would be, we're going to see a glut of multifamily rental inventory. And I think those prices are going to come down. And, I've been a commercial real estate agent for quite some time. So, I do residential at our brokerage, but I also personally do a lot of commercial. And when it comes to multifamily housing or commercial leasing, there's initial tricks that happen that are actually price reductions, but they don't call them price reductions. And I'll give you an example. When an apartment complex starts to say, hey, we'll give you up to 3 free months of rent for a 15-month lease, right? So what happened is you get 3 free months, but then it's market rate for an actual year. And then they're banking on the fact that an average renter will stay there 4 years. So they try and do this creative manipulation of the pricing, the rent pricing, prior to then just all out reducing the rental price, right? Which makes sense from a business standpoint. But I think that as we look at the major cities, where cranes were in the landscape building these multi-family buildings and so many new operators getting in, enticing people to invest in this and that and promising double-digit returns. And I'm not a financial advisor, guys, but, we see it, right? We see it. I talk to them. I have friends of mine that are doing it. And basically, I think that multifamily rents, the down pressure is going to be heavy because it's going to be a glut, right? And people don't care about the amenities. They went after this amenity rich, have a theater room, have a this, have a that, blah, 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 right?
I remember that.
I think that ship has sailed. I think that we're
Yeah.
going to see down pressure on pricing. I think single family homes will remain high. I think that we're going to see rents probably increase in the single family housing because there's going to be less inventory of it. And which is why all of Wall Street, a lot of Wall Street backed businesses and private equity firms want to buy up as the prices go down. They want to scarf up as much single family housing as they can because they know those rents are going to stay high, because over the last couple of years, landlords have been beat. They've been spanked hard, man. So, there were people that were, literally, not paying for years. I think in LA, the moratorium for eviction is June of 23. It's going to be 2025 before they'll get these people out that haven't paid their rent. And some of these landlords are giving $25,000, $30,000 to the tenants for cash for keys. Please leave is what they're saying. They can't pay their mortgages. They're going to be selling these single family houses off. They're going to be exiting landlord. They're going to be getting out of it. They didn't belong there maybe in the first place. And, they weren't, who could be prepared, as a mom and pop to pay for your house for 2 years, fixing things, stuff like that, not collecting rent. So I think downward pressure on the multifamily apartments. I think we're going to see a rise in rents or stabilization in rents. Jay Powell, it's called shelter inflation, rental housing in the U.S. It's called shelter inflation as far as the U.S. economy. And, and I think that the inflation's high on that. Jay Powell said it will remain high for quite some time. Now, here's the trick, Orlando. Here's what I think is going to happen. Okay. I think that big money is on the sideline right now, ready for this price reduction. Okay. Because I think that what's happening, and I'm going to just use this scenario real quick.
Okay.
Let's say you're selling a house for $400,000. Okay. Big money is going to bet on a price reduction, maybe somewhere around 360. If they can buy that house at a 10% price reduction, doesn't sound like a lot of money, but if they can buy that house at a price reduction for 360 and they can pay cash or other people's money, right, that are partners, maybe they're not paying interest payments, interest carryover costs, they can get those houses and get tenants in them and then sit it out and wait for 10 years of appreciation for everything to go up, right? A retail buyer taking that same scenario, 400,000, a 10% discount, 360 may still be unaffordable for them. So these big money investors are on the sideline saying, we'll take these 10 to 20% discounts, we'll write checks, and we're going to put tenants in these houses because the World Economic Forum, if you believe in the Great Reset or whether, where the money is going or where trends are going, you can go to World Economic Forum. Their philosophy is we should rent everything and be happy, right? So, I think that, big money's jumping on board with that. The big operators of the multifamily apartment complexes, I think, are in trouble. They just don't know, may not know it yet.
Yeah, I think so. As a owning multiple multifamily apartment complexes myself, what I've started to see and what I've told my audience, especially some of my members who are invest in multifamily, is that you can't get greedy when it comes to individuals. We're in a recession right now, but you know how that goes. But we're going towards some type of actual recession that the government wants to say. But but when things are going down and interest rates are high, inflation is crazy. And I do believe job losses, the labor market is going to soften, right? So with those three things happening, I believe that people are starting to look at their finances and say to themselves, okay, I'm not going to buy a house, but do I want to pay the tip top premium at the high dollar when it comes to rent? No, they don't. And so people will be pickier when it comes to choosing where they want to rent, deciding to themselves, you know what, I would prefer to stay with my family or my parents, or let's do roommates. They would prefer to do that and save their money rather than you maxing out the rent and then giving them a reason not to pick your unit to live in, right? So I'm telling real estate investors to not get greedy, especially if you already are making money from the what you would consider the bottom of your rent payments to the top. And most landlords are choosing to go to the tippity top. And this is the reason why. It's because during the pandemic, landlords got beat up so much. You're trying to extract all the money that you lost when it came to the pandemic and, the eviction moratorium. So you're trying to make up that money. You're trying to make up that money by going ahead and collecting and raising the rents to the highest that you can. But I believe that is a mistake. And with that, just don't get greedy. I'm starting to see rents come down, and I'm starting to see the amount of people wanting to rent from your apartment applications, they're starting to come down also. So I'm telling people to go ahead and, just kind of chill out, sit on the sidelines. But when you're sitting on the sidelines and you're deciding to yourself, should I go ahead and buy a home or not? To not sit on the sidelines and do nothing, but sit on the sidelines and do your research, sit on the sidelines and save your money. And then when you're ready to jump on a new house or that house that you've been eyeing, that you've been looking on Zillow or Redfin for months and months and months, right? Then you will have all of the resources. You already know what's happening in your local market, and then you can go ahead and approach those things. So I want to go ahead and say I really, really appreciate you, Todd, for coming onto the show and going ahead and giving your insight and your wisdom on the housing market, guys. Hey, guys, listen, I want you to make sure you go to Todd's YouTube channel, Sachs Realty. I'm going to put it up on the screen here. Make sure you guys go there and you subscribe to his channel. He has some great videos, but I'm going to go ahead. Any last words that you want to give to the audience here?
I would say just to follow up with what you just said last, if you're looking to buy a house, nothing good comes from rushing. This is a 30-year commitment in most cases. And guys, the big thing, there was an article that was published in the last 2 years, like 74% of the buyers that were polled showed that they had some type of remorse, that they wish they hadn't have reacted to the market, to the fear of missing out, to the pressures that they were receiving. Take your time. God bless you all. And Orlando, man, thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing. Your channel is amazing. I love how committed you are to bringing it straight to people that want to learn.
I appreciate it, Todd. Thank you, guys. And like I said, guys, make sure you please go to his channel and subscribe. His videos are amazing. And once again, Todd, I appreciate it. And I'll see you guys later. Thanks.
Thank you so much.